Today, it's a super exciting show. We're going to be talking about how to promote well-being and tackle the work-related causes of mental health problems. To do this, I'm joined by Emma Mamo, who's the head of Workplace Wellbeing at Mind. Welcome to the show, Emma. How are you?
I'm very well, Chris. How are you?
Not too bad. It's Friday.
It is Friday.
Good day. Although it's miserable outside. If you're in the UK, you know it's just been horrible
It's improved where I am, but it was a shocking start to the day.
Yeah, I was like to my wife, normally I walk to work or ride, and I was like, can you give me a lift into work, please? Don't really want to go in the rain. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. It's so nice to see you. And obviously, you know, we've had quite a few of your colleagues on the show over the past few years, and absolutely love the work that you do at Mind. So I'm super excited to have you on the show today. But before we jump in, give everyone a sort of a bit about your background and your journey and your role at Mind.
Sure. I've worked at Mind for around 13 years. The last 10, I've focused on mental health in the workplace, but I would say it's the last 5 years where that's really accelerated. But my current role is very much around how we can support employers around mental health in the workplace. So how do you keep your people well? How do you identify what might be causing them to struggle with their mental health? And then how do you respond if someone is struggling? But before that, I worked in youth work, and that's why I wanted to get into mental health. I saw the issues that young people faced if they were struggling or if their parents were struggling with their mental health. So I wanted to be part of really changing the conversation and giving people the tools and knowledge to manage their mental health.
It's quite common, isn't it, that many people move into this space from a background of working with the youth?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can see that. I just think it's one of the main reasons why we still have such stigma and taboo around this issue, because you're not educated growing up. There's a conversation about your physical health. Your parents can talk to you about it and have a conversation. School, that it's part of it. But mental health, you don't hear anything until you start struggling, which is often far too late.
Mm-hmm. You're 100% right. I spoke to you about beforehand, and I discussed with Paul Farmer and Tim Munden on the last show. I hid my anxiety and my panic attacks and mental health problems from my friends and family only until a year ago.
Wow.
Because exactly what you were talking about. I was worried about, well, my friends are going to think, you know, my parents, as much as I love my mom so much, but even she kind of didn't encourage me to talk about it. It was kind of keep it to yourself. As only my mum that knew about it and kind of how I was struggling. And at work, there's no way I was going to share that with my, global sales director, because it would be seen as weak. I thought I would be seen as weak or passed up on that promotion. And what are my colleagues going to think of me? So it's taken a long time for me to get to the point, and I'm sure many people can relate to the point where I feel comfortable with sharing and being vulnerable.
Yeah, as I said, I've worked at Mind for many years, and in broader society, sports professionals, celebrities, even MPs were sharing about their personal experience of mental health problems while debating mental health funding in the House of Commons. Workplaces were lagging behind, and I think it is that thing around, once I say it, I can't unsay it, and will I always be seen through that lens? And I think that has been a real barrier to people speaking up. So that's why we're working with employers, so they create the culture where they're taking care of their people, and then also saying, if you're struggling, this is how we'll support you. This is what we can put in place and explore in terms of support measures and so on.
I think obviously current events, I'm sure, is accelerated some of the work that you do. And I'm sure you must have thousands, if not, tens of thousands of employees reaching out to you and the team, and how you can help them. Give us an idea of kind of what the impact that you've seen the pandemic's had on people's mental health.
Yes, I mean, this has been a huge disruption to how we all work and live. When the pandemic, the lockdown, the beginnings of the pandemic, Mind was obviously concerned about what this would mean for people's mental health. You can see that it cuts across all aspects of well-being. It's our physical health, our social health and well-being, our financial well-being, and then obviously the mental health aspects of this. There's also the feeling that for individuals, it'd be a real roller coaster. Like the impact it would have on you wouldn't be something that's static. It's quite dynamic based on how things were evolving. And then thinking about the specifics, it's around mental health. It's the health anxiety of a pandemic. It's the loss of life, bereavement, grief, trauma. It's also the lockdown and the restrictions it was putting on people's lives and how they would normally stay well. So going into it, we could anticipate how it might impact on people, but we wanted to obviously truly understand the scale and the issues that people were facing. So we did a survey during the lockdown period, April to May. 16,000 adults and young people took part. Around 78% of them identified as having previous experience of mental health problems, but the rest of respondents had no experience previously. But what we found was around 60% of adults said their mental health had got worse during that period. And that rose to 68% for young people. When we were asking people, well, what's making your mental health decline? It was the isolation, not being able to go outside, not being able to see people out of your household, the anxiety of getting the virus or your family and friends getting it. So that was the picture, but we could also cut it by different groups, and parents, their mental health was declining more sharply. And as you can imagine, young children at home, homeschooling. Yeah, you've been experiencing that. I know you have, you and your wife. So, I've been working from home this whole time. My experience has been very different to people who have children. We also found that women were more affected by the restrictions of having to stay inside. And that's maybe because they're more likely to be the primary caregivers. So they were also taking the brunt of that. And we were very keen to understand what impact it was having for people with existing mental health problems. And around a third of people said that although they would normally be accessing support for their mental health, they felt during this time, because the NHS was under such extreme pressure, they didn't want to seek support for what they saw as not serious enough to kind of seek support for. But obviously we've been trying to encourage people to seek support if you need it. And then I guess the other piece of this is, and what I often reflect on, we've been in the same storm but not the same boat, and people have been very affected in different ways. So we've already seen a greater loss of life amongst people from the BME community. I think women have been disproportionately impacted, as they're often overrepresented as key workers in terms of the health risks. And then young people, I think, have been disproportionately affected because they are generally employed in the industries that have taken the hardest hit and are probably going to take the longest to recover. So hospitality, travel, and so on. So yeah, that's the kind of picture that we've been building, and also then asking people how they've been coping. And there's been a lot where people have been coping in positive ways, but there's been a rise in people, drinking and eating more. And then people between 18 and 24 have been self-harming and so on. So seeing some more negative coping strategies during this time as well.
Wow. It's part of this that people, because I know this was tough for me, that you're also being removed from your support network because you can't access it. You're on lockdown, so you can't go and see your friends or your family members. Is that part of it? Do you think that?
Absolutely.
Social network. And if you can't reach out to your support network during these times,
isolation has been a key driver for people's mental health declining during this time. Obviously, we can reach out in different ways. And I suppose in the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, we did see a rise of togetherness and unity, and neighbours setting up WhatsApp groups. If you are stuck at home, let me know and I can go out and get stuff for you. And people trying to make each other's lives easier. Joe Wicks doing PE lessons to help parents out. There was a real rise of how can we each help each other out. But I think there has been that restrictions. Some family members, people have had children, babies during this time, and they haven't met their grandparents or extended family. And I think there's also where people have lost people, not necessarily because of the pandemic or, coronavirus, but have lost people during this time, but couldn't be with them at the end and couldn't mourn for them or have funerals in the way that they would normally have within, their family, and how they would process losing someone. And then obviously the massive loss of life just from the pandemic as well. So there's lots in that in terms of, a support system that we draw upon in terms of friends and family, and just the impact on that really.
Talk us through some of the ways that yourself and the Mind team are supporting organizations through this. Because for those that aren't familiar with Mind and what you do, give us some sort of practical things that you and the team are doing to help organizations through this.
So Mind, as a charity, we're here to make sure anyone experiencing a mental health problem has somewhere to turn for advice and support. So in general, Mind has been responding, giving people information and tools to manage their mental health during this time. My team, as I said, is focused on people in work and employers. And at the start of this, it was about, well, how can we get information out to people quickly, both workers themselves, but also the management teams overseeing them and needing to take care of their mental health. And when you think about this disruption to everybody's working lives, everybody was worried about everyone. Everyone was having to adjust to things overnight. So we tried to approach it in terms of 4 distinct groups. But even within those groups, there's different needs. But first and foremost, thinking about first responders. So the NHS, social care, emergency workers. So how can we get them the tools and information they need to manage their mental health doing such challenging roles. And then obviously, as I said, the management teams supporting them. So we launched in partnership with Samaritans, Shout, Hospice UK, and the Royal Foundation, a new 24-hour round-the-clock mental health support for people working as first responders, but also broadening it out to key workers. So everyone else that was leaving their home during the pandemic.
Was it like a phone?
So yeah, there's a website where you can access information. There's the Samaritans helpline that you can call, and then there's a text service. And then Hospice UK are providing more of that trauma support, because I think also, especially for first responders and what they were dealing with, it's probably going to be the longer term effects of that we need to respond to. So yes, that's one group, the kind of first responders. Second group, key workers. The third group is people now working from home who had to adjust to that overnight. And I include my team in that, and Mind. And then the final group, people not working, either because they were furloughed or because they've been made redundant. And with the furloughing scheme coming to an end and seeing a rise in redundancies and job losses, very concerned about that group and what happens now for people. So that's how we were trying to respond, just think about 4 groups and how we can support them and give them the information. So, as I said, we've launched a few programs we've launched a program for key workers and first responders, and then the rest has just been around good information and guidance about how to manage your mental health while working in that way, or if you're not working, how to take care of yourself during that time.
If I'm an employer, I am an employer, and I want to work with Mind, what does that look like? How does that work?
Sure. So there's 2 places. If you're directing your employees, the mind.org.uk website has a huge amount of information. We have got a coronavirus information hub that's very clearly signposted, so people can get directed straight to there. As an employer, we also have a website that Mind works in partnership to manage and create, called mentalhealthatwork.org.uk. And that has a whole host of resources and toolkits, and you can search for things based on your organizational size, what kind of topic you're looking for, based on your role. So are you a manager, HR, senior business leader? So those are the 2 main places that I would direct people to. But if people ever want advice or information about their own mental health, we have helplines as well. So, but going to the website would then direct you to everything that we have on offer. What
about your own team? Because one of the things that I think I was definitely guilty of it during all this, is forgetting to put our own oxygen mask on first and taking care of ourselves through this. So how have you been supporting your own team during this time?
It was very interesting. We went in, Mind was planning to go remote. We were making, thinking through what business continuity, for want of a better term, would look like and how we could go remote. But I don't think any of us went in to work on that Monday. And then the 5 p.m. announcement from the Prime Minister to say, if you can work from home, please do. So we then went remote the next day. So I had to spend the first couple of weeks just stabilizing my team, establishing new ways of working, checking in with everyone that they had the equipment they needed to work from home, setting up the new ways that we'd be checking in with each other, and making sure everyone felt supported and clear. And then I could then look at how we can then respond to and support employers. But the main thing that I've been following and really recommending to other managers, employers, is taking a principles-based approach, because our all internal landscape, the things we're dealing with, is very different. So the best way to navigate that is taking a principles-based approach. So the first one is well-being. So staff well-being absolutely needs to be the priority, and you need to be checking in with people and understanding their personal circumstances. And that was very important at the beginning of the pandemic, because younger people, potentially in shared households, don't have access to places where they can work quietly. Working parents, I had to really understand the needs of people in my team and how best to support them. A lot of people started working part-time to help manage. The second piece is around clarity. So as I said, setting up new ways of working, focusing on simplification. We started using MS Teams a lot. We'd used it previously, but I don't think we'd ever used it to the full functionality of it. And that's been brilliant during this time. But the rest of Mind was still quite email-based, and we had remote desktop here, and had to really then think through what are the platforms we're using and why, and having those systems and frameworks communicated. And then with everybody working differently, we had to do a bit of contracting, saying, I'm working these hours, so you understand that. So we just created a document so people knew what people were doing. So I think it's just giving people clarity around processes and then priorities. You know, we couldn't do everything. We had to really think what is the most key things and what else gets parked for the time being. The next piece is just around community. If we're now all working from home, how can we still have those moments of social connection and offering support that would just happen organically in the workplace if we were all together? So we've done things like picnics, virtual get-togethers, art competitions, quizzes, just trying to think through those things. Yep. 11Zs.
What's that?
So you know, downing tools at 11 and all getting together.
Oh, okay. I like the way you said it though. It's good.
11Zs, you know, 11 o'clock.
And
then the final piece is just about being reflective. We all had to spring into action, put things in place. Is it working? Is it not working? Is it going to get us through the next month? So it's very much around a two-way dialogue. So yeah, so that's what I've been doing with my team, and then encouraging other people to think about. And it also works for yourself. You know, how am I taking care of my well-being? Where's my where do I have enough clarity about what I need to do? Where's my community? And am I being reflective about, you know, how things are going for me? So I think it helps to kind of think in those terms.
Mm-hmm. You spoke a lot about the team, but what about yourself?
So I've always been quite focused on that. I can't be head of workplace wellbeing, and you know, they say a cobbler's child runs barefoot. So I've always had to kind of focus on how I manage my work and have good work-life balance, and then also how I manage my well-being. And some of that had to change and adapt, because some of the things I would normally do, I always love a midweek pick me up, meeting up with friends, to kind of not have, you know, the work kind of dominate during the week. So I had to think about, do I want to now do that digitally, catch up with people on Zoom? Sometimes I don't actually like doing that. It's all you do all day at work. So in the height of the pandemic, I was then just trying to think through, well, what's going to help me? So definitely having desk time, just having time at the beginning of the day to look at the tasks that have come in, what I need to do that day, my priority. So rather than being in meetings all day long and not feeling like I've kind of worked out what I need to do or delegate. So yeah, just making sure I've got adequate desk time to do that processing of work, really. The main thing for me is just not being a slave to emails. So I try not to have it open all day. So then I just process it. What's an action? If it's 2 minutes or less, I get it done. So using all the stuff that's just around good productivity and time management. And then just at the end of the day, doing a gratitude journal and reflecting on stuff that's working well, just being kind to myself. It's been busy.
We're beating ourselves up, aren't we, through this? I was saying to my wife the other day, I was like, things are going to fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
You know, you're raising a child at home whilst trying to do your job, whilst again, and there's just this thing, a lot of people, as friends, family, I'm sure you're seeing it, just beating themselves up, feeling like they're, and as employers, we need to make sure that we let our employers that that's okay. Like, you know, and my wife's employer did a really good job on that. They gave her a call the other day, and she was on loudspeaker, and her boss was like, "It's completely fine. Like we'll work around it. It's not a problem." And the relief that I gave my wife, she almost was in tears to say, like, I can't believe they were so supportive. I'm so behind on my target, and I've got Robin running around. I've got to prepare lunch, but then I've got a meeting, and then, oh, we've run out of nappies. You know, there's just so many things. So we do need to cut ourselves a bit of slack.
Absolutely. A very wise friend of mine years ago said to me, you should only speak to yourself as you would your best friend. And I think we can all have that very critical inner voice. And my thing is, I can ruminate. If things don't go well, I can fixate. And the one bad thing will massively outweigh all the good things, which is why I always try and keep myself focused on what is working well. And if something didn't work out how I wanted it to, take the learning and then move on. And I've been much more disciplined during this period, because we're all up against it, and you need to not give too much airtime to those negative things, because, as I said, take the learning and move on. So that's kind of the things that I've been doing just to take care of myself, just checking in with myself a lot as well. Like, where am I at? Like, if it's got to the end of the day, do I feel like I want to reach out to a friend, or do I want to go for a walk? Do I want to listen to music? You know, where am I at, and what's going to help me at this point in time? So just doing that very reflective piece.
Like, do you set like a reminder to say check in with yourself, Emma? Because it's like, I know we're laughing about it, but I actually personally have, like, I set myself reminders on my phone to see, like, just like, whether it's like a moment just to chill out for 10 minutes, like I'll set reminders, or in the evening, like you mentioned, a gratitude journal. I wish I could say I did it all the time. I'm very bad at it. But when I do it, I end my day by not thinking about all the stress and things I have to do tomorrow, but all the things that I'm grateful for. And I sleep better. I feel more calm, relaxed. Whereas sometimes, maybe it's just me, when I just about to get in bed, I'm thinking, oh, what's going on tomorrow? Got to do this, got to do that. And then I can't sleep because I'm thinking about it. But if I end my day with writing down what I'm grateful for, or when I wake up in the morning, starting my day with what I'm grateful for, it just changes the complete perspective of your entire day and the energy and everything else.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't really timetable stuff. I'm quite an emotional person. So I know when things are getting to me. And I think it's always so... Pardon?
You're very self-aware then.
Well, I try to be. I've always had a bit of a temper, and if the pressure's on, then I can feel it a bit. And then I don't want, it's always that thing, you want to respond rather than react. So if I feel that I'm feeling a bit frazzled, I absolutely then take the time that I need to kind of stabilize myself or kind of regroup and so on. So I've just been more mindful of those things. It's a great, it's why I'm quite a passionate person. It's why I've been, a campaigner most of my career, or an influencer. That it's a positive, but I just have to make sure that it doesn't become a negative if I'm feeling on the back foot or feeling pressurized. So that's why I think I'm quite a reflective person. I do the gratitude journal every day at the end of the day, and that is a massive thing for me. And I don't, that is a habit that's ingrained. So yeah, I would encourage you to do that. And as I said, I really like taking time at the end of the day to think through what's come in, what's important for tomorrow. And that helps me, I say leave work at work. I mean, work is now in my living room, but it does help me do that shutting down. And I always shut my laptop off, even if I might jump back on it later on because I want to do some shopping or whatever. But it's the ceremony of the working day is done.
Overall, you're working with, thousands of organizations. How have you seen in terms of how companies have reacted? Are you proud of what you're seeing? Or are you thinking we're lagging behind? We've got a lot of work to do?
It's a great question. I think with all of this, it's always a bit of a mixed picture. So over the recent years, we've seen more employers understanding they need to support the mental health of their staff and wanting to do more, sometimes not maybe knowing where they need to start. And then some organizations have been in this space for a long time and have been doing a lot of stuff. I know you've had Tim Munden from Unilever on here. Yeah. So, they've been leading the charge for many, many years. So I think going into the pandemic, organizations who had stuff in place already would have been potentially in a good place to just respond, and they might have had to scale up what they do because now their whole workforce might be needing support, but they would have had good foundations to build on. I think what has been positive during this period is it has accelerated what had been happening in terms of employers understanding staff mental health and the interaction between work and someone's mental health. So it's been making more conversations happen and building that mental health literacy and that comfort to have those conversations. I think it's probably been challenging for many line managers to be supporting all of their staff going through a challenging time. So I always think it's really important for employers to be looking after their line managers as a key group within this. I think for organizations where they maybe hadn't been looking at this issue before, it may have pushed them into now looking at this issue, and hopefully they've been able to find the information that Mind and other organizations have cascaded around how to support staff. So I hope they'd be getting access to that and kind of benefit from all the work that has gone on before, and can quite easily then start putting things in place. So I think it would be a mixed picture, but I do think this has really, the mental health impact of it has been spoken about from the very beginning, and that is a very different kind of context to what we've ever seen before. And I think that's in response to the fact that mental health has been increasing in profile, public policy, government attention, and so on and so forth, and public awareness over recent years. And then at this point in time, it's just meant we kind of get a bit more around the interaction between our mental health and our physical health and so on.
It's obviously terrible the times we're going through, but I think it's definitely push mental health and well-being to the forefront. A lot more people are talking about it. I have been super proud at some of the organizations that we work with and that I followed, that their senior leaders coming out more and talking about how they're struggling and making it more, being vulnerable, and that facade is going to come, that wall has come down, and people are finally understanding it's okay. And I was one of those people. It took me this whole entire time to have my first call to seek help. It was via a video call. I was nervous. First time I've seen a psychologist. It's like, oh my God, I'm about to talk to this stranger about these things I haven't even talked to my closest friends and family about. But I did it, in the literally 2 weeks ago. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. to do it. It shouldn't have took a pandemic to make it happen. But, you know, if something's come out of that, so many of my friends and family that I never knew were suffering have come to me during this period and been like, I'm feeling the same way. And that's why I was really excited to have you on the call, and obviously the incredible work that you guys do is just amazing. So thank you to you and the team for all the work that you do. For everyone listening, where can they? I know we've already tagged in the site, but for you personally, where can they connect with you if they want to say hello, Emma, and they want to reach out to you and the team?
Yeah, sure. I mean, people can get me on LinkedIn. I don't think there's too many Emma Mamos, so you should be able to find me, Emma Mamo at Mind. And I'm on Twitter as well, so feel free. But if people just want to drop us an email, then work@mind.org.uk, and one of the team will get back to you. So those are some more direct ways in which you can get in contact with my team.
Amazing. And then before we wrap up, is there sort of one parting piece of advice you could give to sort of leaders out there? What would that be?
Taking care of yourself. It's really important. You know, we as leaders, we're trying to respond to this situation and support our team members, but that needs to start with ourselves. So as I said, just regularly checking in with yourself. How are you? Give yourself a score between 1 to 10. 1 not so great, 10 great. And if, you know, your score's a little bit middling or below, think about what would help you move along one score and what would help you at that point. So yeah, just doing that piece of taking care of yourself would be the top tip I'd give. Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out, Emma. Very happy to. And for everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. As always, if you're new to this, head over to hrleaders.com/podcast. You can subscribe, catch up there later. Make sure you head over to Mind and make use of their incredible resources. Make sure you do that. Apart from that, we'll have a good weekend, everyone, and we'll see you all again on Monday. Bye for now, Emma. See you later. Bye. Bye.